As far as Stroud is concerned, he is one of the more exciting quarterbacks to enter the league in some time, as he was fourth in passing expected points added, which, if you don't know what that means, I have a video explaining that stat, and I truly believe it's one of the best stats out there. And as we can see, too, he's really been great according to PFF grading as well. So he's been doing it in a variety of ways. The only thing that isn't a super success for him is his play under pressure, which is not great because that is something that translates from college to the pros, particularly as you see more and more pressure in the NFL than you do in college, especially for him. He had arguably the best offensive line in college, and in addition to that, he also had arguably the best weapons in college as well. So he was not facing a ton of pressure, and when he wasn't tremendously successful against it. So that is one knock against him, but basically everything else is pristine and totally in his favor. The simple stats, such as yards and touchdowns, amazing. The advanced stats, such as PFF grading, also fantastic. He also showed against Georgia he can handle pressure. It's just an issue of how consistently is he going to be able to do that. In all, though, there's little to go against CJ Stroud because statistically he's great, and watching him, he can make every throw and read any defense with basically no issue. What should be a bit of an issue, though, is the fact that the Texans have a pretty weak offensive line, as they ranked 28th in PFF pass blocking grade, and they made some upgrades with Shaq Mason being brought in. He is a premium right guard in the NFL, so that's good. Between him, Laramie Tunsil, and Titus Howard, they have 3 of their 5 spots absolutely solidified. The problem is, though, Kenyon Green was a disaster as a rookie, and Drew Scruggs was expected to go in the 4th round, so 2 of the 5 starters are pretty bad. And really, in the NFL, your offensive line is as good as your weakest links are, and for the Texans, it seems like those weak links are going to be pretty glaring, and that's going to be pretty problematic. Fortunately for Stroud and the Texans, though, everything is not all bad because the weapons he's going to have at his disposal are actually pretty good for a high draft pick quarterback, as Nico Collins has limitless potential and has shown flashes. His issue has mainly been staying on the field, but I could really see Stroud having a back shoulder type of connection with Collins, with Stroud's premier accuracy and Collins' great athleticism and height. Robert Woods and Dalton Schultz, both very solid pieces. And then Dameon Pierce is an elite running back. So there's talent at all levels for him. There's not great secondary options beyond those players, as John Mechie is a very talented second-year player, but he didn't play at all as a rookie due to health issues, and it's really hard to project a player that hasn't played at all, so not really sure what it's going to look like beyond those players, but between the 3 wide receiver / tight ends and the running back option, there's a lot to like for Stroud, at least early on in his career before the team is fully even fleshed out. And speaking of things to like for the Texans, their defensive backs are actually pretty darn solid, as Derek Stingley is the real star of the show. He's going to dictate just how good that unit is, as he was a premier cornerback prospect and had one of the best years as a college corner that you'll ever see, as a freshman, mind you. So he's shown a ton of promise. He didn't have a good year this past season and his rookie year, but cornerback is traditionally a position that takes a little bit for players to develop. Beyond him, though, there's Shaquille Griffin, Tavier Thomas, Steven Nelson, Desmond King. Those are just the corners, mind you. They're all starter level, and some of them are pretty high end, such as Desmond King in the slot and Steven Nelson as an outside corner. Then there's Jimmy Ward at safety. Very good player, can do it all. Then there's Jalen Petrie. Didn't really have a good year as a rookie either at safety, but was drafted pretty highly, has a ton of talent. Their defensive backs are not going to be an issue at all. Their defensive line is not quite as strong as their defensive backs, but it really shouldn't be an issue for them either, as they made a really nice splash move in signing Sheldon Rankins, which shores up their interior part of their defensive line, which was a bit of an issue for them last year. But now they have Rankins and Malik Collins on the interior, both pretty good at getting pressure. Rankins, a pretty solid run defender as well. And Jonathan Grenard on the edge had a really solid year 2 years ago and didn't have quite as good of a year this past season, was dealing with some injuries as well. Jerry Hughes, still a solid player at about 57 now. And then obviously they added Will Anderson, a great prospect, has the upside of a TJ Watt level player, and is really looking to probably start out strong, as he already has great hand usage and is athletic enough to where his weight is still going to probably be an issue. He needs to add some weight to him, but really solid player, very talented. And again, they have some depth beyond those players too. They have Jacob Martin, pretty solid edge player. Chase Winovich on the edge also had success early on in his career, could be revitalized moving forward. Hassan Ridgway, a pretty solid rotational guy on the interior as well. For our last positional group, linebacker, they've done a lot of work there, as they brought in Denzel Perryman from the Raiders, who is a really good thumper. And they also brought in Corey Littleton, who is a nice coverage guy. So they should play pretty well off of each other, as their strengths will accommodate each other's weaknesses, and they should flourish pretty nicely together. And this was really a position of need for the Texans, as last year they had a pretty terrible linebacking core. This year, at the very least, it's going to be really solid. It could be pretty high end as well, because PFF ranked them both in the top 25 out of 81 linebackers. So they have had some success as recently as last year, and they've also been pretty successful throughout their careers as well. So it's not really just a flash in the pan of success for them. Their coaching is an area I'm really excited for, as Demeco Ryans is one of the absolute premier defensive minds in the NFL currently. Sure, he had a lot of talent at his disposal in San Francisco as their defensive coordinator, but he put everybody in the right position and got them to play as well as they should have, which is really difficult when you have a ton of talent. To get them to play as well as they should, a lot of coaches, even good coaches, will have some success but not get the absolute most out of their players. And I'm really excited because the Texans are not anywhere near the talent of the 49ers defensively, but they have a ton of pieces similar to what the Niners have. And that, in conjunction with his great coaching, should be pretty exciting to see how everything turns out. It would be nice to have Stroud with an offensive-minded guy, but Demeco Ryans going to get a ton out of the defense, so that should alleviate some of the pressure from Stroud early on in his career. In all, I think there's a ton of talent on the Texans. It just is an issue of making it all cohesive, as it seems like there's kind of a glaring issue on both sides of the ball for them, as offensively, their offensive line is still going to be an issue, and they don't really have the superstar talent for their weapons to alleviate that issue. Defensively, they need a stud shutdown corner, and that could very well be Derek Stingley as early as this upcoming year, but it may not be. So they have some issues on both sides of the ball. It's just going to be an issue of rounding out the rest of their roster, which for a rebuilding team in as early of a process as they are is really not a bad position to be in. Those are my thoughts on the Texans, though. Be sure to let me know what yours are in the comment section. And also be sure to like and subscribe for more NFL and NBA content.